So, good morning everybody, and thanks a lot to welcome us and to give us a stage and to, let's say, imagine that we are social innovators. Somehow I think social entrepreneurship becomes quite fashion, and sometimes it happens that we are invited to cocktail parties. And then you meet, let's say, real business people. And then you know how it is, you have your first drink and your second drink, and then you start talking, and immediately you were asked, what are you doing? And then I said, yes, I'm doing Dancing in the Dark. Dancing in the Dark, what's that? Yeah, it's an exhibition held in pitch darkness, and what's going to happen there? Yes, we are employing blind people, and they are working as tour guides. And at latest, when I start talking about that I employ blind people and put them in dark boxes, and I think some suspicious minds come up and they think this guy is not serious. And I think they are right. On the other side, then you know when you continue talking, and then they ask you immediately, listen, but seriously, how you came up with the idea? This is all the time coming. I don't know if a cucumber producer is asked how you came up with the idea to produce cucumbers or tires. I don't know. But as a social entrepreneur, you are immediately in the position that you have, I think, to justify, you have to point out, you have to state why you are doing your business. First question, and then second question is. And you can, how you make money, how you can stay alive. Okay, briefly, how I came up with the idea. It started 20 years ago, actually, and I had a chance, I think, to meet a young man who lost his sight by an accident. And I have to admit that I had no encounter, no idea about blindness at all, and I had this very awkward feeling, oh my goodness, 28 years old, he must completely despair, he must be in a miserable situation, he has no beauty, no fun, no nothing, and now I have my poor guy, I have now, I think, to take care of this man. So I visited him, and okay, first surprise, he was handsome. He was a tall, looked like a rock musician, and was really, how to say, surprising me from his appearance. Secondly, he was completely autonomous. He could move in his house. I was completely surprised how he could do that. He could manage everything. So to make it short, he completely, let's say, corrected my stereotypes and my prejudices. So I felt really, let's say, a little bit shocked about my behavior, and I thought, my goodness, I'm so educated. I'm a doctor of philosophy. I felt history. My family history has some strange elements, so I'm quite aware about what means discrimination and extermination. So to make it short, I was pretty shocked, and I said, okay, wow, if I behave like this, if I bring a person in distance so quickly, even with my education, how others will behave. This was the beginning. But I thought, okay, how I can do it, how I can, let's say, bring people together, how I can overcome this barrier, how I can make it happen that people, let's say, enter to an interesting exchange and not all the time jerked by pittiness and maybe compassion. Okay, and then in a moment it was very clear. I think you have to turn off the light, and then you have to invite blind people, and then you have a reversal of roles. You are blind and the blind are sighted. You know, I don't know if you have heard about Josef Schumpeter. He's an Austrian. He was, as a banker he failed. As a minister for finance he failed. His entire love affairs failed. He went to Harvard. It was the only thing where he not failed, but he was completely in a very difficult situation all his time. But he came up with a very interesting, let's say, enlightenment. I have to say enlightenment. He said that innovation is based on creative disruption. That means we have to destroy, we have to, let's say, really to cut something. And what we did, okay, we employed or we invited sighted people to enter to a dark room where, of course, I think they are immediately confronted with their limits. Shortly, how I make money. In fact, I don't make money. If people ask me, listen, are you non-profit? I said, no, I'm not non-profit, I'm no loss. We are not state funded. We are not looking for grants or for donations. We are not begging for money. We are not collecting money. I think what we are doing and how we could, let's say, roll out internationally was that we used, I think, the franchise technique. And this came up out of, let's say, not because we think franchise is the best methodology. It came up, let's say, purely because we had no money and we had no expertise and we had no experiences. And I think people came, at least we want to do our exhibition, but we cannot pay you to come with a truck. And so I think we shared our knowledge, and this was how it came up. 20 years ago, I even could not spell franchise. Actually, I know that franchise is now, let's say, quite, let's say, in fashion in the social sector, in the social entrepreneurial sector. But at the last international meeting we had showed clearly, franchise is not working in the social sector. What is needed is franchise. You need really people who believe in you. You need people who are burning, people who are able to inflame, let's say, the sector where they're working with. And this is how it came up. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. We have some time for questions, and I'd like to kick off with a question, but I would like everyone in the audience to begin thinking of questions you'd like to ask, so that after we have a bit of a conversation, as you can see, we have microphones set up in the aisles, and I'll invite you to come and pose questions to our panelists. I would like to kick off the conversation though with a question of my own, which is, in each of your cases, you work with particular, let's say, target populations, if you'll let me use that term. People living in slums, people living in developing countries who might be seen as poor, people who may be seen as disabled. And for those of us who aren't directly involved with the kind of work that you do, or who aren't working with the same populations that you're working with, it's very easy for us to have stereotypes. It's very easy for us to make assumptions about the lives of people. Now, all those people can't be with us here on stage today. So the question I'd like to ask each of you, and please each in turn take a turn to answer it, is what's the one thing, in each of your cases, what's the one thing you would like for all of us to understand about the people you work with and the people you serve, which may be different from what our external perception would be? Who would like to take that question first?
Okay. The first and the most important thing, that social innovations is about people. It's not about projects, it's not about programs, it's not about money. It's about people. And believing in the dignity of every human person, believing in their capacity to help themselves and one another. We have a ground-up development, but we work also with people who control wealth and power. And for us to really see that rich and poor can work together, that business, it is important for business to see investment in the poor as good for the business, because it will expand their market base. And it is important to work with politicians to show that enlightened voters also, in many of our instances, that we only see the good in people. Even if people tell us that that politician is corrupt, even if he's 90% corrupt, we will engage the 10% good in him.
I work at both ends of the spectrum, of both with the affluent and the extreme poor. And I think in the eyes of the Creator, we're all created equal. And He doesn't differentiate between whether you're wealthy or whether you're poor. And my encouragement is that identify who you are, know yourself, and explore within yourself, what was it that you were created for? And what's your purpose for being on the planet? It's not just to take up space in a seat, but you have a purpose and a destiny for being on the planet. So find out what that destiny is, and then use those gifts and talents and skills to relate to either your peers around you or those in poverty. So my suggestion is, know your uniqueness, and then just be yourself, because everyone else around you is taken.
Wise words, David, thank you. Now, I think something's happened here on stage.
Yeah, I'm here.
We have a maverick who's...
You have to change the perspective, right? No, I think from my perspective, I think it's the same. I think we are working mainly with disabled people, and there are approximately 1 billion people on Earth who are disabled. and around 140 million people are blind. And I think the entire, let's say, realm of disability is mainly, let's say, understood by the deficit, but that there's a lot of potential, and what we are doing is returning deficits to potential. And I have a great pleasure, I think, to welcome Daniela, who is now working for 8 years for Dialogue and Still Alive.
Well, what is the profit? What I can say is that the dialogue in the dark philosophy is based on learning through encounter. So for me as a blind lady, my profit is that I'm living my life. I'm not talking about it, I'm not waiting for my life to happen, but I'm living my life by guiding sighted people in the dark. Thank you.
Okay, well, what I would like to do at this point is invite you to pose your own questions. I think you've seen that we have a very open panel. We have people who are willing to run up to you right in your seat and talk to you. As you can see, we have microphones set up in the aisle, and we have the staff organizing the event who can help you out. So, does anyone have a question they would like to pose? Please approach a microphone. I'll give you a couple seconds, and if you don't, I have a long list of questions of my own. Yeah, please approach the microphone.
Brenton Caffin from the Australian Centre for Social Innovation, and I guess I just wanted to pose a bit of a thought bubble about the role of the innovator as the heroic individual versus the power of the idea, and what's the right balance to get? Do you need the individual first and then the idea, or do ideas spring up from groups? And that's 21.
Okay, let's have a question.
Well, for me, it was definitely, I think, a personal encounter. But there was a certain, let's say, preparation, but it was unconscious. But when I had the chance to meet this blind guy, and suddenly it was a certain, let's say, concentration. And then I had no idea about business, I had no idea about, let's say, social work. I was just so much, let's say, touched by the situation and by the injustice. For me, it was definitely the case that I felt really physically the injustice, and I cannot stand injustice. That's why I said I dedicated my life to make the life of blind people better. So definitely it was a personal encounter.
For me, it was a faith journey, and it is also about the future of my children. I am a father of 5 children. I am now the grandfather of 6 grandchildren. And although I'm a late bloomer in development, I realize that I have pursued this to the end because I want to build a better world for them. I don't want their lives to be miserable simply because of the deepening and widening poverty and also the destruction of the environment. And so our slogan is very simple: save the poor, save the environment, save the environment, save the poor, build a better life for the future of our children.
For me, it's not the idea first or the individual, it's the opportunity. And for me, things just pop around us all the time. And the trick is, are you available to respond? So that there's so much potential within each one of us. And it's, just are you available? Because I think good innovators don't have a formula. They're creative enough in their thinking and can come up with different approaches to different social situations and can respond to that. So I think social innovators think on their feet, they move fast, they make impetuous decisions. And I think that's what's exciting, is that there is a cookie-cutter approach for a social innovator.
Who's next? Who has? I see the lines are very long behind the microphone, so you may have to stand out in the hall. Nevertheless, please.